watching this sick shit. This is sickening.
Can't deny it, it's all true. But everybody still wants to live here. This city's always got a promise for you. Might be a lie, an illusion, but it's there, just around the corner, and it keeps you going.
Mayday, it's Kay, and I've just been handed this preem BD called Cyberpunk2077, a single-player story-driven game with a start that could only be described as cataclysmic. And now, I think it's time we look back and see if Cyberpunk 2077 has redeemed itself, or if it's just a waste of eddies. Developed by CD Projekt Red, their bread and butter of the gaming space was The Witcher, a fantasy series which they'd be praised for most in 2015 when The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt won Game of the Year. But sometimes games have very little competition and...
Oh my goodness!
That wasn't the case for 2015, with titles such as Bloodborne, Fallout 4, Metal Gear Solid 5, and Super Mario Maker competing against some of the biggest developers. Damn, Japan was cooking this year.
No, not you, Seamus.
Ah, poo.
But in spite of that, the Polish company came out on top, helping it escape the clutches of bankruptcy and define the company as one of the most skilled in their field, despite not having many titles behind them. But we're not on about The Witcher. Instead, we're jumping a few thousand years into the future because it's time to wake up, samurai. We've got a game to review. Releasing December 10th, 2020, Cyberpunk was the most anticipated game of said year, and rightfully so, as it was announced 8 years prior to the release. That's before The Witcher 3 had even been announced, and yet The Witcher 3 released well before Cyberpunk would, which, in the eyes of the fans, only furthered by the teaser trailer foretold the level of quality the team aspired for. They announced the release date as when it's ready. Back then, a great way of growing hype, but in retrospect, ironic foreshadowing. But after several delays, it was eventually released. But with us now going on 5 years since its release, I believe while this game might not be perfect, it's definitely worth looking back on and seeing where it is now. People's opinion on Cyberpunk's story is the equivalent to their impression of Johnny. Either you love him, or you hate him. There is no in between. As Cyberpunk isn't about you. It isn't about V, it isn't about Johnny. It's a game about Night City, a diverse metropolis, where corruption and violence seeps through every corner and crevice. Whether it be from the many gangs such as the Voodoo Boys, Maelstrom, or 6th Street, or the large corporations who run their districts with an iron fist. With classism on full display, those at the top look down upon those beneath them. The nomads seen as the cockroaches, a pest needing to be eradicated, but to themselves, a family, a brotherhood, a group of outcasts unwilling to get sucked into Night City's bright neon lights and corporate dealings. Then the street kids, the rats of the city, doing all the underground dirty work with ripper docks, drug cartels, and violent gangs. Ones who abuse all of these either end up dead or a cyber psycho. Meanwhile, those who were big gang leaders, once they finally met their end in Night City, once a big rat dies, many smaller ones eagerly try and fill its place. As for the street kids' perspective, there's not much space for family, only very small groups as everyone's tongues hisses like a snake's. And they will always try and get the edge on any corpo or each other. Then, for those within the big businesses, they too always have to look over their shoulder. And to keep the animal references going, they're like the vultures. They understand the pecking order, who is above them and who is beneath, using whoever and whatever means to climb the corporate ladder, making sure no one has the chance to stab them in the back, the same way they do to others. And while the game is about Night City, V is our eyes into that world. That, in my opinion, is why we get the option of how we'd like to start. Nomad, Street Kid, or Corpo. It doesn't matter, because no matter how we start our life, we are shown the dark sides of that lifestyle, becoming a deserter, only equipped with the resources or skills that life gave us. And one way or another, our story starts as a tale of two forming an unlikely friendship with Jackie Wells, who becomes the one person we can trust, rebuilding our life and starting anew before...
Alright then.
Before the introduction shows us how ruthless Night City can be. Seeing and experiencing betrayals by those who are at the very pinnacle of the corporate ladder, and those who are offering us a job too good to be true. As the job goes sour, strips everything away from us, leaving us flatlined and dumped with the item we had stolen implanted inside of us. Somehow, we survived. And now, we aren't just V. We are now accompanied by the mind of a deceased legend, Johnny Silverhand. Being this sort of supercharged AI parasite, when we first meet him and communicate with him, he isn't exactly pleasant. He's cynical, hateful, and with the aggression to match.
Fuck. How the fuck should I know? When you weren't even an itch in your daddy's ballsack. The fuck kind of droid toy are you supposed to be? Only two willing to spread their legs for you. Sad. Well, aren't you the king of fuck-ups? Now like that! Stick some iron in your mouth and pull the trigger!
Overall, a complete douche, who disregards us, only valuing himself and the destruction of Arasaka, forcibly trying to take over our body, as the item, also known as a relic, is doing the same thing, leeching off us till all that is left is Johnny. And while we play the game, we have to deal with his constant bitching and moaning. But over time, you notice subtle changes, as while he still retains a lot of these traits, he also softens up. Being stuck with another person and their thoughts, you would form some sort of understanding, and it seemed like V and Johnny had that sort of begrudging friendship.
He's fucked in the head. The world's fucked in the head. And you're fucked in the head because my fucked up head is inside it. Guess if you want to save the world, that's the first step. Get fucked in the head.
What do you think? God exists?
Fuck. Kill me, please. Johnny Silverhand, rock legend, voice in V's head.
The
And
fuck,
also,
Johnny?
let me pretend I exist sometimes, okay? Bet you anything you're gonna scream like a little girl. The dame disappeared into the guts of a building ready to collapse. The air hung heavy with smog and betrayal.
Maybe it's a good thing I'm dying.
Can we find whoever did this? I need to shake their hand.
Unlikely, for two reasons. First, they didn't leave a trace. Second, you're dead, Johnny.
Oh right, when I get in a good mood, I forget that.
Then you shoved my patient at the time off the table and demanded you be treated immediately.
Tell him it was your guardian angel.
Which is also best described by the creator of the relic, asking if V had become more like Johnny. And while we get poked with this question, it's also worth thinking about the vice versa. Had Johnny become more like V? That's one of the best things about Cyberpunk. A city that never changes, but when you look into things on a deep philosophical level and the sociology of each character, that's where the game shows its world building, story, and changes best. Also, I think it's very possible while Johnny's AI was taking over V's mind, their influence affected new data being uploaded, making him more human than his original digital construct, as the item was only meant to be used on a lifeless host, one with no way of interacting with the relic. But hey, that's just a theory.
A game theory!
That isn't to say the story is without flaw. There's a lot of things that are overlooked and underdeveloped, like Johnny's deep hatred for big corporations, which, while it's more relatable given the state of America at the moment, it wasn't given anything more than a surface level, corpo bad, must go. There seems to be nothing personal about it, and how he always talks about taking down Arasaka. An easy solution to this would be for him to make it about settling the score with Saburo, which, yes, having V's memories would mean he already knew Saburo died. But this isn't explicitly expressed to us, and it's just something you have to infer, or the overall pacing and way they decided to tell us each story, starting off with a phone call. Like, sure, I'd love to have a small image in the corner of my screen giving me exposition to a new mission instead of a fully fledged cutscene where I can not only see the character's facial expressions, but also body language. Phone calls should have been reserved near exclusively for minor characters with missions that don't develop. Not for characters with actual effects on the story like Panam, Takamura, or Judy. Like, it would have sucked if in Skyrim 90% of your quests were given to you by the courier. Or if every cutscene in Red Dead Redemption 2 was replaced with just Arthur standing there as we talk, barely able to express himself. Or to see the slight changes in Dutch. It just helps each mission feel less repetitive. And credit where credit is due, nearly every scene where you're talking to a character does look cinematic. And when CD Projekt Red does decide to take things slow, not the intro slow, I'm pretty sure I fell asleep 3 or 4 times and still hadn't finished the intro, but the world and characters do feel very real. It doesn't take away from the fact the voice acting carries almost all of the emotion in each character and their story, which is such a shame. But also, the lack of cutscenes can be really frustrating because we're not a silent protagonist, where we don't need to see our character. We've spent so long crafting into our vision of V. Choosing our dialogue to express our opinions and emotions through V, only to experience the game through a first-person perspective 100% of the time. Another thing that makes the game's story feel oversold and underdelivered is the thing that made most people give Cyberpunk another go. Its anime counterpart. Cyberpunk Edgerunners, while it also had its own pacing issues, it gripped audiences' attention as it showed the side of Cyberpunk more narrow in scale, but more detailed than the game. And that's the emotional level of everything. It showed brutality, it showed community, it showed us the kind of storytelling we should have seen in Cyberpunk. And I think this is a common theme in the game in many aspects, where it's trying to do too much all at once. Which in some way I get, as the game is trying to tell us that V has exhausted every option they have. But with us going to places once and never having a need or reason to return, a lot of these locations get forgotten, and the story in those areas less memorable. But at the end of the day, the story is told to us from the very beginning, with phrases such as,
something right off the bang? Would you rather live in peace as Mr. Nobody, die ripe, old, and smelling slightly of urine, or go down for all times in a blaze of glory, smelling near like posies, without seeing your 30th?
which, when we first hear them, we think we're different. But we're not. We can't change the world, we can't destroy the corpos, stop the gangs, and cleanse the city. No matter what we do, or how hard we try, the only thing we can really change is a drink on a menu. Cyberpunk's gameplay is a weird one to unpack. After many patches and updates, it's in a state now where the things you can do with V are incredibly fun. With 5 different skill trees and cyberware that in the beginning were predominantly status effects, now on version 2.2 they have refined and adapted the gameplay features to feel more engaging, giving players a new variety of abilities and skills. And yes, they do give status effects or overall buffs, but a lot of these skills either give you new abilities or unlock ones after speccing into them 3 times, giving you buffs, making you feel like a super soldier, and with the skills to act like one, making engagements just that, engaging. With skills like air dash, which while it only gives dash buffs in the first 2 stages, on the 3rd you get the ability, meaning if you want to be that katana wielding assassin, you'll definitely want to spec into this skill. Or the Wrecking Ball and Quake skill, if you just want to be a beast with no regard for the bullets passing by you as you slam on top of your enemies. Which does mean every fight you encounter can be handled in your own personalized way, similar to Skyrim. It doesn't require you to be able to use certain abilities or cast certain spells, unless you specifically want to do something related to that thing. The game is completable in your own way, and that goes for cyberware too. You want to be able to breach enemy security and their own cyberware? You'll want to get a good cyber deck. with lots of RAM for powerful abilities and lots of mod slots for a variety of situations. Or would you want a double jump to fit that aerial assassin I previously mentioned? Then you'll want reinforced tendons, and maybe a hand wire or mantis arms to slice and dice. Or say fuck it and bring out the bazooka fists. Cyberware also has their own buffs, benefits, and restrictions, giving you an armor rating and cyberware capacity, limiting your options and making you really have to think about how much you'd like to create your skill set. And while I think it is a strong point, it's also the combat system's weak point. How? Well, since every encounter can be completed the same way, typically guns ablaze, there needs to be something more challenging to each encounter. Something to make things different. And since Cyberpunk seemingly draws inspiration from other open worlds, it should have recognized enemy variety is extremely important. But sadly, it feels as if 80% of the enemies are the same humans with guns and occasionally a melee weapon. Another 15% is mechanical turrets, while the remaining 5% is cyber psycho sightings and boss fights. And that 5% is the only time the game really feels challenging. But even then, most of the time it boils down to how many sticks of lead you can pelt into them before they go down, which is also mind-numbing. A good way they could go about this is just altering each enemy ever so slightly, adding a couple of mini-bosses and some proper bosses to more missions, both main and side missions. But not only that, Cyberpunk has a wide array of enemies with different ideologies and styles, so why not make that more distinct and more meaningful? For instance, make characters such as 6th Street more gun proficient and less likely to be running cyberware. Therefore, quick hacks wouldn't affect them. They'd be harder to attack head on. Which, while we're at it, we could make Maelstrom more proficient with this cyberware, relying on it more and enemies having a chance to go cyber psycho, like how Goliath in Borderlands work. Becoming enraged, aggressive and unpredictable, attacking anything close to them, which would also make Maelstrom enemies weaker to cyber attacks. Then you could also have Arasaka with the Netrunners, making you more susceptible and needing to take more stealthy, out-of-camera approach. But you get my point. And while in some things, like Max Tac, have been improved, by them actually feeling like a threat, prepared and equipped to take down cyber psychos, you can go the whole game without encountering them. Because just like in GTA, if you can escape that wanted level, your crime disappears, instead of building some sort of bounty like in most other open RPGs, where you'll immediately be wanted as soon as you re-enter that region. But also have the chance encounter with a bounty hunter, more equipped than the usual cannon fodder. We, the players and devs, would love to have an expansive world with lots of things to learn and discover. But it's not enough just to give them a look and backstory. We need something to set them apart from the rest. Like, wouldn't it be weird if all the minor enemies in Elden Ring fought just like the foot soldiers? Sure, they'd look different, but ultimately dealt with the same way. And I will add, they've upgraded Atom Smasher a lot. I just wish they'd give the same TLC to the general world more than just the one-time boss fight. So, I guess the way I describe the core gameplay is, for the players, it's been refined to near perfection, while on the enemy side, definitely needs more tweaking to make each encounter more stimulating. And if that's too much for the casual player, make it difficulty based. There are 4 different difficulties, and all they do is change the damage enemies soak up and how much they deal. Whereas in older titles like Halo, not only did they do these things, but they upgraded the AI and the enemy types. Difficulty you go up, the higher ranked the enemies were. Meanwhile in Cyberpunk, I don't think I ever scanned a thug, no matter the location, with a higher wanted level than 3 stars. And I don't see why CD Projekt Red couldn't have made this for Cyberpunk.
The feeling of being there, of walking the streets of the future, is really going to be breathtaking. You're breathtaking. You're all breathtaking. All right. So, I
The
gotta
visuals of
finish it.
Cyberpunk
So tell
are
me.
a definitive and indisputable creation that holds the game together. But
You hate them compared to how much I like
Shut
them.
up, you're so annoying!
Nope, there's nothing I can say negative about the game's visuals. Everywhere you go, you feel like you're in this world. Or in a movie. Colors bright and vibrant, driving around at night, I felt like I was in Blade Runner, with the glow of the neon lights and the rainfall puddling onto the ground. Making its own reflections, its graphics were definitely made with modern and future gaming in mind. Granted, I can't show you the full scale of these graphics, as the game really tests my PC's capabilities, but each city is clearly represented, their style and class, with the central city being filled with mostly the more wealthy individuals and the big corporations, their skyscrapers walling off the area with an abundance of bright neon lights and billboards, being the epicenter of Night City, but it is also the representation and lie of Night City. Being a city of opportunity and dreams, but in truth, the moment you leave to another district, that facade quickly falls, as you enter Watson, clearly under the poverty line with people struggling all over. The north side run by Maelstrom, and the south by Tiger Claws. With their industrial setting, colors mostly mute, and uninteresting architecture, even for a city so far in the future, it feels solely functional, and not one unlike the world we live in, with areas suffering while others prosper. But each location still feels alive in its own right. With unique locations, Cyberpunk has really done well when it comes to the little things, like sprawling streets of Japantown, the random crime scenes appearing as you drive around, with police already on the scene, and the little movements of characters like Vic sliding across his work floor. In his chair, of course. And of course, not everything is perfect. The food looks like ass.
This is fucking raw!
And your character's outfits you can't see unless you're in the menu or camera feature. It kind of makes you wish you had the option of a first or third person perspective. As for the vehicles in Cyberpunk, while we can't drive flying vehicles, that doesn't take away from the vehicles we do. And thankfully, 50 years in the future, there are no Cybertrucks to be seen. Guess Tesla stocks just kept plummeting and Elon couldn't keep up. Instead, you can see cars tastefully inspired by British, American, and Asian vehicles. And it translates perfectly well, with luxury being delegated to the British company, as their sleek, high-end designs and performance meshing well with their sci-fi, similarly to the UK's Aston Martins. It's a car for those with too much money, perfect for corporate leaders. Then the off-roaders and muscle, the American specialty, the vast majority of which mostly unappealing to look at, granted, not the worst, but the general American muscle car looks very Mad Max, with most mechanical features exposed and less technologically advanced. But that doesn't go for all of them, as some designs like the Type 66 reminds me of the Ford or Camaro. And that's the best thing visually, is that things both look old and futuristic, able to draw parallels to cars now. Then the Asian cars cover the rest, with the poorest of the poor, the average commuter, to the street racers. Oh, and Porsche's here. Hi Porsche! But also with the ability now to pick your own car colors. Sure, it's not Los Santos Customs, but at least now you can make your aesthetic more to your liking. And it's kind of unfortunate that one of the best selling points I can think of for the game is its aesthetics. It's a stunning game, and with photo mode definitely benefits those artsy nerds. Bugs. After so many updates, how game-breaking are they?
Hello, IT? Have you tried turning it off and on again?
Well, while in the beginning I was planning on saying that they're practically non-existent and don't affect the game whatsoever, as I was getting footage, I had a fair few crop up, and not just a car driving by clipping into the floor, but ones that were completely immersion breaking.
Huh?
But whatever. These may only be slightly annoying, or immersion breaking. Who cares? But that's not all. Whenever I went into the cameras, then left, my entire HUD disappeared, causing me to pick unwanted dialogue options. And in these story games, that's all we really ask for, is to be immersed.
Seriously, V, you gotta do this now?
In conclusion, while not a perfect game, CD Projekt Red never gave up on Cyberpunk. They could have just forgotten about it and tried to make something else, but they didn't, wanting to give the game the support it needed and players a game they deserved. So, while there are issues with it, at least there isn't 500 microtransactions.
Shots fired, shots fired.
And is one of the better sci-fi open world games made in recent years, with satisfying gunplay, beautiful imagery, and abilities that can drastically change the way you play, and a story that is deeper than what you see on the surface. And while I didn't talk about it, Phantom Liberty for a lot of people was a driving factor in players' return and subsequent revival of the Cyberpunk franchise, alongside the Netflix show. So, if you think you can overlook the game's faults, I would recommend picking it back up, giving it a go, and seeing if your opinion changes, which, by the looks of things, has for a lot. And with the game being announced for the Switch too, I reckon there's many more updates ahead of us. So, Mayday, it's K, and don't get stuck in deep net, yes cyber psychos.
I just love Latinas, Sonic.
What?